Hey, good evening. So later this week, I am recording a workshop on healthy eating for a budget. And when I shared over on Instagram that I was prepping for this, so many of you asked for a copy of the recording. So I've completed my notes. I'm going to run through it here for all y'all as a practice for how long it's going to take me, and also to get this content in your hands, since I'm not sure if I'll be able to get the actual recording for you. If I do, I will certainly share it. But it is no secret that grocery costs are exploding, okay? Anyone who's new here, don't know who I am, my name is Jamie. I'm a registered dietitian, and I love talking about health and our bodies from not only a biblical perspective, but a trauma-informed perspective, that our body needs consistency, our body needs kindness, our body needs compassion. The Lord gives those to us, so by all means, we can give that to ourselves and to others as well. So this topic ties into that because stewarding our body is something we are called to do out of obedience. But with stewardship comes the financial pressures of grocery prices rising, and maybe supply chains not being as available as you had hoped, maybe things you had access to, or maybe your ability to do a garden or get local meat is not what it would be in an ideal world. So I hope to give you some tips today that can make this really practical, really down to earth, and that you will leave this conversation feeling equipped and feeling like you've got some ideas to try. So I hear from so many people, the most common objection I get when we have conversations about coaching and healthy eating is it's so expensive. If you are already on a strict budget, grocery shopping and meal planning can feel just insurmountable. While you are right that food costs are skyrocketing, I'm confident that some intentions and some tips and some ideas and some simple shifts to how you shop and how you prep food can actually make a big difference. So every dollar you delegate to food can go a little bit farther. So what exactly do I mean by eating well, eating balanced, eating healthy on a budget? Put simply, eating well is eating a diet of whole foods, a variety of foods, a good balance of macronutrients. Those are your proteins, your carbs, your fat. Those are your macronutrients. And those balanced with a good variety of micronutrients. Those are your vitamins and your minerals, your things that are in more micro amounts of your food, with enough calories to support your energy all day long. All right. If you're not eating enough, you'll face fatigue, you'll face headaches, weak muscles, your energy will crash, you won't feel energized for workouts, and all your other hormones will go a little crazy if you're simply not eating enough. And chronic dieting can be like that. All right. If you are jumping from diet to diet, from restriction to restriction, you're telling your body you're not getting enough and you're not safe. And that is traumatizing to the body, especially if that's happening decade after decade, year after year. So part of eating well and calming your nervous system response is eating enough and eating consistently enough that your body can trust that you are nourished, that your needs are met, that you can extend energy for movement, that you can extend energy, that you don't have to sleep the day away. Those are all signs that you are eating enough. Now, we don't want to eat too much, all right? Eating too much, you're going to be inflamed. Your blood sugars are going to be high. Your blood pressure is going to be high. Energy crashes, excess weight. But good news, your body has built-in regulators. There is built-in hormone regulators to help you eat enough, but not too much. Now, years of ignoring hunger or ignoring fullness or eating past fullness may have dampened those signals, but rest assured that they are not gone forever. With a little intuition, a little mindfulness, you can begin trusting your body enough, and you can start building that relationship of trust with your body. All right, let me say it again. Eating well is not about eating perfectly. It's about eating in alignment with your goals most of the time. Most of the time, because life happens, right? Life happens, schedule changes, things get interrupted. So eating according to your goals most of the time. Think of it on a grading scale. If you could have a passing grade on eating well, what would that look like? If you would currently rate yourself at a C minus, what would C plus look like? What would B minus look like? You can go step by step by step. You don't have to go from 0 to 100 immediately, or from 0 to 10 immediately. Okay? So let's start with the basics. You may have heard about healthy eating on a pyramid at school, right? The healthy eating pyramid. Sound familiar? You've got the oils and the sweets on the top. You've got the 11 servings of bread on the bottom. Well, we don't eat off a pyramid, so I would like to simplify this by simply talking about the 3 macronutrients I mentioned earlier. Let's start with protein. Protein is the most filling macronutrient. If I say protein, I want you to think of meats, fish, dairy, yogurt, even nuts and seeds and beans, whole grains. Protein is the building block of our body. It is necessary for repair. It is necessary for muscle building, and a great place to start to help you feel full and to help your grocery budget stretch is to have some protein at every meal, especially in the morning. Because here's the thing, the way you start your day is often what you crave all day long. You might think you're saving costs by getting away with just a $1 donut in the morning, but all day when you crave sugar and you crave soda and you crave more sweet things because you started with something sweet, those costs can add up really quickly. Those impulse purchases can add up really quickly. When in contrast, if you started with like an egg bake or a breakfast burrito or some breakfast links and some fresh fruit, or you started with protein, you would find that satisfaction factor lasts way longer. So maybe breakfast costs an extra dollar or two, but you will find that the less cravings, the less hunger, the less impulse purchases throughout the rest of the day will probably counteract that. Okay, the next category we should talk about is carbohydrates. What comes to mind is probably donuts, pastries, cereal, rice, pasta, bread. Yes, those are carbohydrates, but carbohydrates are far more broad than that. All fruits are carbohydrates. All vegetables are carbohydrates. Yes, kale is a carbohydrate, spinach is a carbohydrate, carrots are a carbohydrate. This is where a lot of processing comes in. Now, I guarantee the more processing something goes through, the more costly it's going to be, all right? And we'll get into the details of that in a few minutes. But just as a quick, like, okay, what am I going for? What am I working towards? Less processed, the better. Less refined, the better. Whole bread versus white bread. Fresh fruit versus fruit snacks. Carbs are energy. Carbs are brain fuel. Eliminating them is not helpful, but choosing less that are refined and adding in nature's fast food like fruits and veggies as a snack, frozen as well, is just fine. That's a win-win. Okay. Now, the last category we're going to talk about is fats. Now, many of us grew up with the message that fats are bad, and the truth is not that simple. There are helpful and nourishing fats that make us feel full, that help protect our body, that help our hormones get transported, that help us think clearly because fat lines all those pathways of your brain. In fact, there are certain vitamins and minerals that are only absorbed in the presence of fat. So what I mean by that is if you have this fancy salad, but you put fat-free dressing on it, you're actually missing out on some of the vitamin K, some of the vitamin E, some of the vitamins in that salad are only absorbed in the presence of fat. You would be far better off using the regular dressing or using olive oil or vinaigrette or something like that. The full fat is going to actually help those nutrients be absorbed. Now, of course, there are fats that are not helpful, but most of those are found in the processed refined foods. They're fats that have been to a factory and they've been changed, and they're not the fat that originally occurred in nature, and therefore our body does not recognize it, sees it as inflammatory, and sees it as something that it can't deal with. All right? So those are our big macro categories. Now we're going to dig into hands-on practical tips for eating well when the budget is tight. All right. I already alluded to whole foods. Whole foods are generally less costly than refined. Bulk is generally less costly than a single serving. Now, of course, you need to weigh the convenience. All right. If you are going to eat something in a single serving because it's convenient, whereas if you bought, say, a full tub of yogurt that would go bad in your fridge, well, then the convenience may be worth it. But if you have a chance to take that tub and divvy it out into a couple bowls or divvy it out into a couple glass containers to use throughout your week, you will find that those larger items are less costly, okay? Oats are in bulk are less costly than cereal, all right? You can take those oats and you can put them in a jar and you can put a drizzle of maple syrup or some brown sugar or some frozen fruits, or you can make it as flavorful as those packets for a far less costly amount given that time to prep it. All right, a block of cheese is going to be less costly than shredded cheese. All right, a bag of uncooked rice is going to be less costly than minute rice in the box. Okay, calorie for calorie, these whole foods are more nutritious than hyper processed, which also makes them more filling, more satisfying. All right, another example: bag of chips, bag of apples. Bag of chips may be $1 or $2 cheaper than a bag of apples, but the bag of apples will fill you up and take several days or several meals to eat, whereas we've all sat down with a bag of chips and realized it was gone before we looked up from our show and we're reaching the bottom of the bag. Okay, again, no shame, you have full permission to have your favorite foods, but when we truly are trying to make our dollar stretch, we want to make sure that we're getting bang for our buck in the grocery store. Okay, another cost saving tip is do not panic about organic, in all honesty. Organic does have less pesticide residual, less toxic things potentially on there, but nutritionally, the amount of nutrition and vitamins and minerals is not significantly different. Okay, so both organic and non-organic whole foods are all nutritious. They are all helpful for your body. All right, and so don't panic over choosing the organic when the budget is tight. Don't go crazy for superfoods. All whole foods are super. Now, you might love fresh dates or spirulina or keiko or chia seeds or bee pollen. They're all wonderful things, but no need to spend big bucks on them when the budget is tight, and more variety could be purchased using that $20 bill towards 5 different items versus a bag of bee pollen. You know what I'm saying? Frozen is healthy. This is another common question I get is, well, if I can't afford fresh, is it worth it? Well, in some times of the year, frozen is actually more nutritious than fresh. Think of it this way: fresh food is picked before it's ripe and it's on a truck and it is on a plane, train, and an automobile before it gets to the grocery store, and then it probably sits at the grocery store for, who knows, 3 days, 5 days, a week before you get it. Whereas something that's frozen is actually picked when it's ripe, not before it's ripe, and it's flash frozen, and that nutrition is locked in. All right, actual statistics here: fresh can lose up to 60% of its nutrition between when it's picked and when you buy it at the grocery store. Not even that, by the time you actually eat it. Anywhere between 15 and 60% of nutrients are depleted during that time. Frozen loses no more than 20%. So best case scenario would be like, go pick an apple off your neighbor's tree, and fresh and local is ideal. But if you live somewhere where that fresh food isn't available, there's absolutely no shame in choosing frozen. It may fit the budget better, and it actually might have more nutrition. Okay, buy in bulk if you have the space. That is another cost saving tip. New page. All right, and buy dry. All right, dried beans are far more affordable than canned beans, right? This is true of pasta, of lentils, of rice, of herbs. Dried herbs versus fresh herbs, there's a huge cost difference there and very little flavor difference. Stock up on those root veggies, sweet potatoes, beets. They're nutritious, they're filling. I'm not sure why they're so demonized when they are actually huge energy sources for us and insanely nutritious. They should not be avoided. They should just be partnered with protein. They provide satisfaction and energy for several hours. They also can side with any meal. You can have potatoes at breakfast, you can have potatoes at dinner, you can have it in a soup, you can have it in a stew, you can have it baked on the side. Like, so much versatility. And again, the whole food is going to be less costly than French fries, right? So if you've got time and a knife and a cutting board to chop it up and make your own French fries, go for it. Plus, you could use that potato for many different things. Less popular cuts of meat. So whole chickens, bone-in cuts are usually less popular, but they usually actually have more nutrition. So if you're comfortable cooking with that, choose those, okay? A whole chicken, for example, even a rotisserie chicken, you can get several meals out of that, because not only can you eat it fresh and ready, but you can then take the bones and you can put it in a pot with some other leftover veggie scraps, and you can cook it overnight, and you can then have a really nourishing broth for pennies. Whereas how much is a half a gallon of chicken broth in the grocery store? Like $6 nowadays. You can make that as part of your rotisserie chicken, and it doesn't require a lot of hands-on work. Remember, everything's hard, like learning new skills and trying new things in the kitchen and rubbing up against that like chance of failure can be a little uncomfortable, but it's something you are absolutely capable of learning and doing. Include some plant-based meals. Now, I am not an advocate for going vegan or 100% plant-based. I think there's some cracks in that over long term that end up with nutritional deficiencies, but I am a full advocate of sneaking more plant-based foods in. For example, adding a cup of cooked lentils to a pound of hamburger and still seasoning it all like with your taco seasoning. That's a great way to make that pricey hamburger go much farther, all right? You can add a few cans of beans to a pot of chili to make those cuts of steak and those meat cuts go a whole lot farther. This bulks out the meal, creates I think a better, but a hearty soup, more soup for maybe $2, whereas adding that much meat would probably cost like closer to $10. So sneak in some of those plant-based things in your meals. Another tip, take inventory of what you have before you buy anything new. Ensure you aren't purchasing duplicates or letting food go to waste because you didn't even realize that you already had cucumbers in that bottom drawer where veggies go to die. Actually, I strongly encourage you to keep your fresh stuff at eye level, not in those drawers, because that stuff literally goes there to die. Like, we forget about it, out of sight, out of mind. So one of the best money saving tips I can give you is keep that stuff at eye level. Prep as you put away, like home from the grocery store, wash, chop, get that cutting board and that knife dirty once, get it ready to go, have it at eye level, invest in some great glass jars so you don't have to use reusable bags constantly, and have that at eye level. Guaranteed you are more likely to eat it if you see it, all right? Forgo brand names. There's nothing to worry about when it comes to the off brands, all right? All food manufacturers have to follow the exact same standards. So unless you can tell a difference, which we all have those one or two things that we can tell a difference, but you do not have, like, there is not any more nutrition in the name brand version. Purchase what is in season. Seasonal foods is also more like local and more fresh. If you have the space to take something seasonal like blueberries in the middle of summer and freeze them for winter, by all means. Speaking of freezing, limit food waste by freezing for labor. For example, just this week I had a little bit of pasta sauce left over. So you use most of the jar of the pasta sauce. There's this much pasta sauce, and I had some tomatoes that needed to be used up. So I made a homemade soup, and I added this much pasta sauce to it instead of that sauce sitting in the back of the fridge for another week and then getting mold on it. All right, so sneak it in. Leftover cooked veggies from dinner can go in an egg bait or an omelet the next morning. They can be re-roasted and tossed on a salad for a scrumptious temperature contrast to your fresh salad. So I am a big advocate of batching and cooking in bulk so that those leftovers can be recycled and used in another meal. Almost done. I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. I'm hoping some stuff sticks and gives you some ideas and gets your wheels turning. Cook at home if possible. Multiple meals can be made at home for the price of a restaurant meal. We all know that. Similar meals and ingredients. It's okay to repeat food. In fact, research shows that people that repeat the same meals are actually more successful with their health goals because they're cutting down on that barrier of like learning a new thing and risking failure. Okay, so I actually encourage you to maybe have one night a week that you try a new recipe, and the other nights just do stuff on repeat that you can do on autopilot. Cut down on that mental barrier of trying new things constantly. If something works, don't be afraid to repeat it, and don't feel fearful that you're not getting enough variety. As long as you have variety in the month, you don't need to stress about variety in the week, all right? It all balances out. For example, a bag of carrots, Buy the big bag. You can enjoy them fresh with dip on Monday. You can honey roast them on Tuesday, and Wednesday you can chop any leftovers and toss them in soup. All right, so do a mini meal plan and see how many ways you can use the same ingredients. That also is going to cut down on that cost because you're going to be buying in bulk and it's going to go farther in that way, because there's a certain cost of packaging and delivery and getting that to the store that is just going to be there no matter what the food is. Lastly, be mindful of portions. All right, eating more than you need, of course, increases the amount of money spent on food. There's no denying that portion sizes have drastically increased over the decades. So something as simple as using a smaller plate and giving yourself a moment to pause before getting seconds. Mind you, you have full permission to go get seconds, absolute full permission to go get seconds, but you'll pause and you'll think about it before doing that. And that is the magic pause. That is the magic of like, am I still hungry or am I doing all right? That may not be ingrained in you if you are trying to finish your plate or eat what was placed in front of you. Okay, so smaller plates help with that portion control. Now, in the last few minutes that we have together, I want to touch on how eating well is not only about what we eat, but it's also about how we eat. All right. These habits cost nothing and they also help cut down on grocery costs, because I often see people jumping straight to, oh, I have a stomach ache, so I guess I'll have to go gluten free. I guess I'll have to go dairy free. I guess I'll have to try going vegan or whatever it may be. But those foods that now have to have a specialty label and they're in a special area of the grocery store, those are some of the most premium products and some of the most high cost products. And with what I know about the nervous system and our body's different states, sometimes we jump to those eliminations so quickly, whereas we wouldn't necessarily need to jump there. And let me tell you why. Your body has two states. Your body can be in rest and digest or fight or flight. All right. So this makes the crossover between how food affects your body and how your mental health affects your body kind of blurry and often confusing. Like I said, people often jump straight to the elimination diets the first time they have some digestive discomfort, when a lot could be saved by focusing on, okay, was I stressed while I ate it? Was I anxious while I ate it? Had I just received bad news? Was I rushing from appointment to appointment and didn't have time to eat and felt like I should scarf something down? If your body was in fight or flight while you ate, it's no wonder that that food did not sit well. So, some real simple things that you can try first is anything that can get your body in that rest and digest state. Things like a couple deep breaths, breathing with your belly calms your body down. So, a couple breaths before your meal, a moment of gratitude before your meal, intentionally chewing well and slowing down just a little bit before your meal. Just having a mentality of like, what can I add in that's like colorful and helpful versus can't have this, can't have this, can't have this. Because if your brain is in scarcity, you're going to be fighting against that. A calm body gives you more enzyme production, more chewing gives you more enzyme production, and a calm sense of like, what am I tasting, what am I smelling, what am I hearing, using those five senses, being present while you eat improves digestion dramatically. Okay, so limit multitasking, be present whenever possible. This also will help you know when you've eaten enough, lightening that burden of digestion on your body. Now, of course, if you have an allergy, if you've got a persistent digestive disorder, you might need to eliminate some foods. But even then, a focus on what you can eat, like say you have to go gluten-free, well, make a list of all the things that are gluten-free, all those fats, all those carbs that are gluten-free, all those fruits, all those veggies, all those meats. Keep your brain out of scarcity and you will better digest the food that is in front of you, and you will have less of a need of those specialty premium foods that tend to be some of the most costly things at the grocery store. Okay, so in conclusion, I do believe that it is possible to eat well without an extravagant grocery budget. Now, some meal planning, I like just a little shortcut of meal planning. I like a little, what can I batch for breakfast? If I'm going to make pancakes, let's make a bunch of pancakes. What can I batch for breakfast? Can I make a pot of soup for lunches this week? What are like 3 things I can make for dinner? It does not have to be extravagant, but a little forethought can go a really long way in making it so you don't have to think about food constantly the whole rest of the week. Now, everything is tricky before it's easy. Everything is a little uncomfortable before it's easy. So if you have not yet developed the cooking skills and the meal planning skills and the chef skills to do this well, it's okay. All right, start slow, start easy. Even with that learning curve, you can have the clear thinking, the healthy blood sugars, the sustained energy every step of the way, because the little steps truly do add up and truly do make a difference. So those are my tips. That is my fast and furious guidelines for eating well, what to think about to keep you on a budget, to not go extravagant on your food costs, but still prioritize your health goals, and your nourishment in the midst of that in a way that's sustainable, in a way that you can follow through on the long haul. All right, let me know what was helpful in the comments below, and let's continue this conversation there.